The galaxy had grown used to silence. For 2,000 years, no trace of Earth remained in the archives of the great civilizations. The cradle of humanity, once a myth, whispered in dusty records, was spoken of only as a cautionary tale. A world that had burned itself out, consumed by pride, forgotten by its children who fled to the stars. But silence has weight. It presses on the ears of empires, makes tyrants restless, and convinces weak rulers that history itself bends to their will. The galaxy had forgotten Earth, and in its absence, alien dominion spread unchecked, enslaving colonies of scattered humans who had no memory of where they came from. Humanity was fractured, living as mercenaries, laborers, and cannon fodder beneath alien banners. Then one night, if a galaxy could know, night, the silence broke. Captain Adrian Hale of the freighter Nomad's Mercy was the first to witness it. His ship was little more than a patched-together hauler moving between the edge worlds and the trade corridors of the Zalfirian Dominion. He was a man who knew the taste of defeat, the kind of captain who had once served in noble causes only to be betrayed by commanders with alien masters. The only thing he had left was his ship, his grit, and the stubborn defiance that kept him alive when stronger men had perished. That night, as the ship's sensors whined, and the stars themselves seemed to ripple, Hale saw a planet appear where none had been before. Not a colony, not a terraformed husk, a living world. Blue oceans glimmered like knives in the dark. White clouds rolled across continents. Hale froze at the viewport, his chest tightening because he recognized it from the stories his grandfather had whispered when he was a boy. Earth, he muttered, almost afraid the word would shatter the illusion. The crew didn't understand. To them, it was just another habitable planet. But Adrian knew. Deep in his bones, he knew. The missing world had returned, as if spat back by time itself, whole and alive. The galaxy did not take long to notice. Within hours, Dominion patrols were dispatched, claiming jurisdiction over the system. Other factions, rivals, scavengers, and opportunists sent fleets to investigate. Rumors spread like wildfire, a lost world rich with resources waiting to be claimed. To most, Earth was a prize. To Adrian, it was something else. It was a call, a reminder that humanity had a home, even if forgotten. The Dominion was the first to try. They descended in warships bristling with weapons, expecting to cow whatever primitive life still clung to the surface. But what they found was resistance. Reports filtered through the networks. Garbled and panicked, Dominion forces were being torn apart by weapons they couldn't identify. Fleets burned. Soldiers vanished, and a single message echoed on open frequencies, spoken in a tongue older than most empires. Remembered, this world is not yours. Adrian listened to the broadcast in silence, his hands tightening on the console. The voice was human, harsh, commanding. Male, a voice that carried no plea for recognition, no request for mercy, only dominance. Earth was not dead. Somehow, in the 2,000 years of silence, it had grown stronger. For the first time in centuries, Adrian felt something he hadn't felt since boyhood. Pride, the kind that burned in his chest and made him want to stand taller. But beneath it, fear coiled like a serpent. Because if Earth had truly returned with such power, what would it demand of the galaxy? And what would it demand of men like him, who had lived in chains so long they barely remembered freedom? As the Dominion reeled and rival powers hesitated, Adrian made his choice. He would go to Earth, not as a conqueror, not as a supplicant, but as a son returning to a father he had never met. And deep down he wondered if that father would embrace him or break him. Adrian Hale sat alone in the captain's chair, the bridge lights dim around him, staring at the star charts. The world now hanging in those coordinates wasn't supposed to exist. According to every record, every archive, Earth had been erased from maps before his great-grandfather's lifetime. To see it shining there like a ghost returned to flesh, tore something open inside him. But ghosts didn't return without reason. Captain, the voice broke his thoughts. It belonged to Dren, his first mate, a grizzled spacer with skin like cracked leather from decades of radiation exposure. Dren had no romance left in him, no dreams, only a cynic's patience. You've been staring at that display for an hour. You planning to just sit and drool over it, or are we moving? Adrian didn't answer right away. His eyes remained fixed on the blue orb. He could almost feel it pulling him, like gravity stronger than a star. Set a course, he said at last, his voice low but steady. We're going to Earth. Dren's jaw tightened. He spat into a rag. You're serious? That place is a feeding frenzy already. Dominion syndicates, scavenger fleets, everyone with a hull and a gun's headed there. And you want to throw us into that storm? Adrian finally turned. His gaze was sharp, the kind of gaze Dren had learned never to argue with. That's not just a planet, Dren. That's where we came from. That's where we belong. Belong, Dren scoffed. You think they bastards down there care if we're cousins? For all we know, they've been cooking alien skulls for breakfast these past 2,000 years. Adrian didn't flinch. Maybe, but I'd rather die on my homeworld soil than rat-hauling ore for the Dominion. Silence stretched. The hum of the engines filled the space between them. Then, reluctantly, Dren gave a short nod. Aye, Captain. The order was given, and the nomads. Mercy bent her nose toward Earth. The galaxy had erupted into chaos. Adrian's ship wasn't the only one rushing toward the system. Trade networks buzzed with intercepted messages, Dominion fleets demanding reinforcements, the syndicates plotting sabotage, mercenary companies promising to sell their blades to whoever claimed the planet first. To most, Earth was a resource trove, waiting to be plundered. Its oceans promised water, its forests timber, its soil untapped wealth. They saw it the way predators saw a carcass in the wild. But Adrian felt it differently. Every jump that brought him closer filled him with a strange unease, equal parts anticipation and dread. He remembered his grandfather's stories, how Earth was once the crown jewel of humanity, a world of endless skies and rich lands, but he also remembered the warnings. Earth destroyed itself through arrogance, through wars and greed. Perhaps that was why it vanished. Perhaps the galaxy hadn't taken it. Perhaps it had hidden itself. And now it was back. The first sign of trouble came in the third jump, when alarm screamed across the ship. Incoming signatures, shouted Kalen. The ship's sensor operator, multiple contacts closing fast, Adrian snapped. Upright, who is it? Kalen's pale face went whiter. Dominion Patrol, 6 corvettes. Intercept vector, They've locked us. The Zalfirian Dominion, the most arrogant empire in the sector, tall, insectal beings who viewed humans as useful pests Adrian had served under their command once as a mercenary, until betrayal left half his men bleeding on the ground while their alien overlords fed excuses. He had hated them ever since. They'll board us, Dren growled, checking the charge on his rifle. Take the ship, strip it, sell us to the mines. Adrian's mind raced. The Nomad's Mercy wasn't a warship. She had guns, yes, but not enough to stand against 6 corvettes. They won't board us, Adrian said flatly. Not if they're smart. Earth's too close. They want to control traffic, make an example of anyone heading there without permission. As if to confirm his words, a voice cracked over the comms, shrill and alien. Human vessel, you are in violation of Dominion decree. Earth system is under our jurisdiction. Cut engines and prepare for destruction. Not capture, not arrest, destruction. Adrian felt something snap inside him. For too long he had bent his neck. For too long humanity had been scattered, obedient, broken. But now Earth was back. If ever there was a time to stand, it was now. He rose from his chair, jaw tight. Dren, bring weapons online. Kalen, charge the main coil gun. We'll punch a hole through their line. Dren's eyes widened. Adrian, that's suicide. Maybe, but I'd rather go down fighting toward Earth than crawling away from it. The ship shuddered as the engines roared to full burn. The Nomad's Mercy surged forward, its guns spitting defiance. Plasma bolts cut across the void, one striking a Dominion corvette's shield. It flared but held. The enemy answered in kind, streaks of green fire tearing past the hauler's hull. Adrian gripped the controls himself, weaving the bulky ship like a predator in a school of sharks. One bolt slammed into the aft plating, alarm shrieking, but he forced the ship on. Coil gun charged, Kalen shouted. Adrian didn't hesitate. Fire. The ship bucked as the coil gun discharged, a spear of molten metal. Screaming across the void, it tore into the lead corvette, punching through its shields and ripping its hull apart in a blossom of fire. 1 down, 5 to go. But the retaliation was swift. Plasma ripped through the Mercy's side, venting oxygen from a lower deck. The ship howled like a wounded beast. We can't take much more, Dren roared, gripping his station. Adrian's teeth clenched. He was ready for death, ready to burn when something impossible happened. The stars shifted. At first he thought it was damage to the sensors, but then the comms exploded with static and panic. Dominion voices screeched in confusion. Their ships wavered, tumbling as if unseen hands had struck them. And then it came, a beam of light cut across the void, not from Adrian's ship, not from any fleet. It came from Earth. Pure searing energy lanced outward, silent and devastating. It struck a Dominion corvette, and the ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Another beam followed, then another, until the remaining 4 ships scattered like frightened insects. The battlefield went still. Adrian's crew stared in stunned silence. Kalen's voice was a whisper that came from the planet. Adrian felt the hairs on his neck rise. Not fear. Something deeper. Reverence. Maybe. Or the raw, humbling realization that Earth was not defenseless. Get us moving, he ordered quietly. almost reverently, before someone else decides we're a target. It took another day of cautious jumps to reach the system itself. By then, rumors had become wildfire. Some said Earth's return had awakened, ancient weapons buried in its crust. Others whispered that Earth had never truly been gone, only hidden by technology beyond comprehension. Fleets gathered at the edges of the system, afraid to move closer, watching as Dominion survivors limped away and Syndicate raiders argued among themselves. Adrian didn't care. He was going in, the Nomad's mercy coasted past the edge of the system, its battered hull creaking, its crew tense. Adrian stood at the viewport, staring at the world filling the glass. Earth, oceans that glimmered like jewels, mountains sharp as blades, clouds drifting in calm spirals. It looked alive, too alive. As the ship entered orbit, a signal cracked through the comms, clear, human. Mail. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted orbit of Earth. State your purpose. Adrian's throat tightened. He pressed the comms. This is Captain Adrian Hale of the Nomad's Mercy. I was born in the colonies. I've never set foot on Earth. But it's my home. My crew and I seek entry. The silence that followed stretched like a blade over his neck. Finally, the voice returned, cold and commanding. You claim blood. Blood is tested. Adrian exchanged a look with Dren. What does that mean? A sudden flash of light answered. A beam scanned across the ship, bathing every corridor, every deck, every man and woman in its sterile glow. Adrian felt it in his bones, like something crawling through his veins. Searching. Then it ended. The voice returned. You may descend. Adrian let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The crew murmured in disbelief. Dren muttered, well, Captain, looks like they didn't decide to roast us yet. Adrian didn't smile. His eyes were locked on the planet below, where clouds parted to reveal sprawling cities that hadn't been there in any archive. Towers of steel and glass rose above, forests and rivers gleaming like blades. Earth was not only alive, it was thriving, and it was waiting for them. The Nomad's Mercy cut through the upper atmosphere, its hull shuddering as fire licked against the plates. Adrian gripped the armrests, the vibration rattling through his bones. But his eyes never left the viewport. For the first time in his life, he was looking at Earth not through distant stories or blurred archives, but with his own eyes. It was beautiful, yes, but not the beauty he had imagined. This was not a world scarred and healing. It was a world perfected. Cities stretched across horizons, not like the sprawling, chaotic colonies he knew, but as if sculpted by a single hand. Towers of silver and obsidian climbed into the clouds, threaded by streams of light that moved like rivers through the air. Between them, vast forests and plains remained untouched, like nature had been preserved instead of destroyed. Oceans glittered with moving lights, not ships but structures, entire floating cities resting on the waves. Adrian's throat went dry. Gods, Dren muttered at his side. That's not a planet, that's something else. Adrian didn't answer. His mind was racing. For 2,000 years, Earth had been silent, absent from the galaxy. In that silence, the rest of humanity had suffered, scattered, enslaved, forgotten. Yet here, the cradle of their kind had not only survived, it had thrived. And it had watched. A voice broke through the comms, the same one as before, steady, cold. Commanding. Captain Adrian Hale, you and your crew are authorized to descend. Any deviation will result in termination. Do you understand? Adrian's lips pressed into a hard line. Understood. The comms clicked silent. The ship banked lower, heading toward a vast city, built along a crescent-shaped bay. From above, it gleamed like a blade, towers rising like teeth from the shore, while docks extended into the sea too. Anchor structures so massive they dwarfed entire colony settlements. As they approached, Adrian noticed something strange. The ships in orbit, sleek and black with markings he didn't recognize, weren't scattered defense fleets. They were disciplined, symmetrical, positioned with precision that spoke of absolute control. And on the ground, every light, every street, every tower looked aligned. Not one detail was out of place. It wasn't just civilization, it was order. Landing protocols engaged, Kalen announced, his voice barely hiding his nerves. The ship descended onto a platform, larger than any starport Adrian had seen. Hundreds of armored figures waited, lined in exact formation, their armor a deep black trimmed with faint silver, helmets covering their faces. They carried weapons sleek and unfamiliar. Adrian stood as the ship groaned to a halt. He felt the weight of their eyes, even through metal. Stay sharp, he told his crew, though he knew their weapons would be meaningless. Here, Earth had erased Dominion corvettes like swatting insect. If these soldiers wanted them dead, there would be no stopping it. The airlock hissed open. Warm air flooded in, carrying scents Adrian hadn't smelled in years. Salt from the ocean, pine from distant forests, and something metallic, sterile like the scent of machines. Adrian stepped down the ramp first. Every soldier's visor turned toward him, movement so synchronized it made his skin crawl. One figure broke formation and advanced. Unlike the others, he did not wear a helmet. His face was angular, sharp, his eyes a pale gray that seemed almost metallic themselves. He stopped a few paces from Adrian, standing tall, radiating authority. You are Hale, the man said. It wasn't a question. Adrian met his gaze. I am. The man studied him, then extended a gloved hand. I am Sentinel Commander Rail. You stand on Earth. You will follow. Adrian clasped the hand briefly. The grip was iron. And if I don't, the faintest shadow of a smile touched Rail's lips. Then you will not stand anywhere again. No boast, no bluster, just fact. Adrian nodded once. Then lead. They were escorted through the city, the soldiers marching with machine-like precision. Adrian and his crew drew stares from the people they passed, not of curiosity, but of evaluation, like predators studying prey. The citizens themselves were unlike any humans Adrian had seen. Taller, sharper, every movement efficient. Their skin bore faint tracings of luminous lines, like veins of light beneath the flesh. Technology was not something they used. It was something they had become. Dren leaned close, muttering under breath. These aren't like us, Captain. They're different. Adrian's jaw tightened. He saw it too. These were humans, yes, but changed. 2,000 years had sculpted them into something else, not scattered, not weak. United, disciplined, evolved. The streets around them hummed with Energy, vehicles moved silently above, hovering without sound. Massive displays flickered with images Adrian couldn't interpret, symbols of Earth's unity, messages in a language that seemed like a twisted evolution of the old Terran tongue. And everywhere banners hung bearing a single emblem, a black circle with a silver mark that looked like both a star and an eye. At last they were brought into a vast hall at the heart of the city. Its ceiling soared higher than any cathedral, its walls lined with statues of men and women cast in obsidian, each holding weapons that looked more ceremonial than functional. Yet their expressions were hard, severe, as if warning rather than inspiring. At the far end sat a single throne of black stone raised above a dais. On it sat a man. He looked human, but like the others he bore those strange luminous lines beneath his skin. His hair was dark, streaked with silver, though his face was unlined by age. His eyes, cold, piercing blue, locked onto Adrian the moment he entered. "Captain Adrian Hale," the man said. His voice carried across the hall, without effort, deep and commanding. "You stand before the Primarch of Earth." Adrian bowed his head slightly, though not fully. "Primarch." The man studied him. For a moment the hall was silent, every eye fixed on Adrian. Then the Primarch rose. "You are of the scattered kind," he said. "Slowly, those who fled when Earth was hidden, those who bent their necks to alien chains." His words were not accusations. They were statements, cold truths. Adrian felt heat rise in his chest. He wanted to defend himself, to argue that survival was not weakness, that they had endured what they had to. But the words caught in his throat, because he knew the Primarch was right. "Yes," Adrian said at last. His voice was steady, even if his pride ached. "We bent, we served, but we did not break." The Primarch's gaze sharpened. For a moment Adrian thought he saw approval flicker in those cold eyes. "You came here," the Primarch continued. "Others will follow. The galaxy has forgotten Earth. They will remember, and they will fear." Adrian swallowed. "Then what do you want from us?" The Primarch stepped down from his throne, each movement deliberate, his presence filling the hall like a storm. He stopped before Adrian, close enough that Adrian could see the faint glow in his veins. "What I want," the Primarch said, voice low but heavy with power, "is for the scattered to choose. You are either of Earth or you are not. Those who claim blood must prove it. Those who kneel to aliens will die with them." The words struck Adrian like a hammer. His crew shifted uneasily behind him. He felt their eyes, their fear. This wasn't a welcome. It was a test. Adrian drew a slow breath. His mind raced. He had come seeking home, but home was no gentle embrace. Home was a trial by fire. He met the Primarch's gaze. "Then test me." The hall went silent. The Primarch studied him for a long moment, then finally gave a sharp nod. "So be it." That night Adrian was taken from his crew and led into the depths beneath the city. The corridors grew darker, the walls shifting from gleaming metal to rough stone. At last they entered a chamber lit by a single pulsing light. In the center stood a platform etched with runes that glowed faintly. Rael, the Sentinel commander, stood waiting. His face was unreadable. "This is the crucible, the test of blood. You will face it alone." Adrian glanced at the platform. "And if I fail?" Rael's lips curved faintly. Then you never belonged to Earth. Adrian stepped forward. His boots echoed on the stone. He mounted the platform, standing in the center. The runes flared brighter, light, crawling across his body, seeping into his skin. He felt it burn through his veins, a fire that was not pain but something older, deeper. His vision blurred. The chamber vanished. He stood in darkness. A voice, not the Primarch's, not Rael's, but something vast and ancient, filled his head. You are blood of earth, but blood alone is not enough. Prove your will. Out of the shadows stepped figures, men and women, but twisted, monstrous there. Faces familiar. He saw his grandfather, the man who had told him stories of Earth. His face twisted in contempt. He saw comrades, long dead, their eyes accusing. You bent, they hissed. You served. You obeyed alien masters. Adrian clenched his fists. I survived. The shades circled him. Survival is not strength, it is cowardice. Adrian's chest heaved, the anger inside him boiled, the years of humiliation, of servitude, of being less than what he knew humanity was. No, he growled. His voice grew louder, steadier. Cowardice is surrender, survival is defiance, and I will never surrender. Again. Light erupted around him, the shades screamed and dissolved. The platform shook beneath his feet. When his vision cleared, he was back in the chamber. Rael stood watching, his gray eyes unreadable. The sentinel gave a single nod. You are of Earth. Adrian exhaled, his body trembling, but pride burned in his chest. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a mercenary, a drifter, servant of alien masters. He was a son of Earth. Above in the great hall, the Primarch received the report. His cold smile returned. The scattered return, he murmured. And soon, the galaxy will kneel. Adrian Hale didn't sleep after the crucible. His body trembled from the memory of fire in his veins, of voices that cut into his marrow, of faces he could not forget, accusing him of weakness. Yet he had emerged alive. That was what mattered. He was alive, and Earth had accepted him. When Rael led him back to the upper halls, his crew rushed forward there, faces pale with fear. Kaelin's eyes were wide, searching him, like he might be an imposter. Dren's withered hand clapped his shoulder, heavy and solid. You're still you, the old spacer muttered. Thought they might have gutted you and stuffed one of their silver-eyed freaks in your place. Adrian didn't answer. He wasn't sure what he was anymore. He felt changed, like something ancient and molten now lived in his blood, whispering to him in silence. The Primarch awaited in the throne hall, his cold blue eyes fixed on Adrian as he entered. You stood in the crucible, the Primarch said, his voice filling the vast chamber. You did not break few among the scattered wood. Adrian kept his back straight. You called me blood, I proved it. What now? The Primarch descended from the dais. His steps measured his presence, pressing down like gravity itself. Now, he said, you will understand why Earth vanished. They traveled deep beneath the city, through tunnels carved not by machines, but by forces Adrian couldn't name. The walls pulsed faintly with veins of light, alive with energy. At last they reached a colossal chamber. It was not a chamber, Adrian realized. It was a vault. The ceiling soared high into darkness. lit by towering columns of black metal that hummed with power. In the center of the vault stood a vast sphere suspended above the ground, rotating slowly. It wasn't metal, not exactly. Its surface shifted like glass and liquid, reflecting stars Adrian didn't recognize. He felt his chest tighten. It wasn't just an object, it was alive. The Primarch stood beside him, gazing at the sphere. His face was lit by its glow. 2,000 years ago, the Primarch began. His voice low and heavy, Earth saw what the galaxy had become: empires rising, enslaving, devouring, alien dominions that fed on human colonies, breaking them into mercenary stock and cattle. But Earth was not yet strong. We were fractured, divided, drunk on our own wars. We would have fallen. He turned, his cold eyes locking onto Adrian. So we chose to vanish. Adrian's breath caught. Chose. Yes, the Primarch said simply. We withdrew Earth from the galaxy, not destroyed, not lost, hidden. We bent reality itself, folding space until no chart, no probe, no fleet could find us. Adrian shook his head slowly. That's impossible. The Primarch's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. Impossible to those who crawl, not to Earth. He gestured toward the great sphere. This is the core, born from the fusion of machine and mind, built by the greatest of our kind before the vanishing. It is the heart of Earth's will. It cloaked us, shielded us, and in silence it guided us while the galaxy forgot us. We prepared. Adrian stared at the sphere, his stomach tightening. The hum of it wasn't sound alone. It pressed into his bones, into his blood. He could feel it watching him. What did you prepare for? Adrian asked, his voice quiet. The Primarch's eyes gleamed like steel. War. Rael, the Sentinel commander, stepped forward. His gray eyes met Adrian's. The galaxy is sick, he said flatly. For 2 millennia the aliens have fed on humanity. They enslaved, corrupted, deluded. The scattered forgot what they are, but here on Earth we remembered. We evolved. We forged weapons the galaxy cannot comprehend. We built fleets that can erase worlds, and now, he looked back at the sphere. Now we return. Adrian's fists clenched at his sides. Storm raged inside him, pride, awe, and fear tangled together. You want to conquer them, he said. Primarch's voice was cold as stone. No, we want to cleanse them. The galaxy will kneel, or it will burn. The words echoed through the chamber. Adrian felt the weight of them pressing into his chest. He thought of the colonies, of the broken families he had seen, the enslaved miners, the mercenary companies, bought and sold like cattle. He thought of his grandfather, whispering stories of Earth with pride and sorrow, and he thought of the Dominion ships he had faced, arrogant and cruel, expecting humanity to bow. Part of him burned with savage agreement. The galaxy deserved to fear Earth again. Humanity deserved to rise. But another part recoiled. He had seen what conquest brought: death, chains, broken children. He forced himself to ask, and the scattered? What about the humans who lived under alien rule? The Primarch's gaze turned sharp. They will return, or they will perish with their masters. Adrian's stomach twisted. There was no mercy in that voice, no forgiveness, only judgment. For the next days, Adrian and his crew were kept in Earth's capital under the watch of sentinels. They were shown fragments of what Earth had become. They saw the academies where children train not with games but with weapons their bodies honed from the moment they could walk. They saw the shipyards, vast rings above the planet where Leviathan warships were forged in silence, their hulls black and bristling with weapons Adrian had no names for. They saw the armies, legions of soldiers whose movements were so perfectly synchronized they seemed less like men and more like one living organism. And everywhere they saw the core's influence. It pulsed through the cities, through the people themselves. The glowing lines beneath their skin were not tattoos or implants. They were conduits, threads of connection to the core. Every citizen of Earth was bound to it, linked by thought, by will. Adrian realized then why they looked different, why they moved with such discipline. They weren't just human anymore, they were Earth. Unity, Rail said when Adrian asked. No lies, no divisions, one will, one purpose. That is why we survived. That is why we are strong. Adrian said nothing. He wasn't sure if he admired it or feared it. One evening, the Primarch summoned him. Again, they stood atop a tower, overlooking the city. The horizon burned, with sunset casting the towers in forests in gold. The sea reflected the light, endless and alive. Tell me, Adrian Hale, the Primarch said, his voice quiet, almost reflective. You lived among the scattered, you bent under alien rule, you crawled through the filth of Dominion streets. What do you feel now, standing here on Earth, reborn? Adrian hesitated. His chest was heavy. Pride, he admitted, and fear. The Primarch's lips curved faintly. Good. Pride without fear is arrogance. Fear without pride is weakness. Together they forge strength. He turned, his eyes cold in the fading light. Soon fleets will descend on this world, the Dominion, the syndicates, the collectives, all will come to claim what is not theirs. They will bring fire and we will answer. When we strike, it will not be to survive, it will be to conquer. Adrian swallowed hard. He had seen war, he had bled in the dirt for causes that meant nothing. But this was different. This was not survival, this was vengeance sharpened into a blade over 2,000 years. The Primarch's gaze burned into him. And you, Adrian Hale, will you return to the scattered and warn them? Will you call them to Earth? Or will you burn with them? Adrian met his eyes. The weight of the choice pressed down on him, heavier than any chain he had ever worn. He thought of his crew, of the colonies, of the humans still chained in alien minds. He thought of Earth's power, raw and merciless, and he wondered if, when the storm came, he would be a savior or just another weapon in the Primarch's hand. That night he couldn't sleep. He stood at the window of his quarters, staring at the city lit with silver, veins pulsing with the core's glow. Dren entered quietly, a flask in his hand. He handed it over without a word. Adrian took a long drink, the burn steadying him. They're not like us, Dren muttered, his voice low. There's something else, stronger eye, smarter eye, but colder. You see their eyes, they don't see us as kin, they see us as tools. Adrian said nothing, his hand tightened around the flask. Dren leaned against the wall. I followed you because you said Earth was home. But tell me, Captain, does this feel like home? Or a noose tightening round our necks? Adrian's chest ached. He had no answer. Far above in the orbiting shipyards, Earth's fleet stirred. Black warships drifted like predators, waking from slumber. Their weapons gleamed in silence, aimed not at Earth but at the stars beyond. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. But Adrian did, and he wasn't sure if Earth's return was salvation or the beginning of humanity's darkest age. The galaxy did not sleep after Earth's reappearance. For 2,000 years the great empires had built their power on silence, silence from the homeworld, silence from the cradle that had birthed humanity. That silence was broken now, shattered like glass, and the sound echoed through every star system. Within days, fleets began to converge. The Zephyrian dominion was first, proud insectal lords who had long considered humanity little more than an expendable species. They could not allow Earth to stand outside their grasp. Dozens of warships burned through slipspace toward Sol, their banners flashing with symbols of ownership. The syndicate cartels followed, not an empire but a swarm of greed. Raiders, mercenaries, and smugglers, bound together by profit. To them, Earth was a treasure chest, ripe for plunder, its resources worth more than any world. They sent fleets, armed to the teeth, scavenger ships, trailing like vultures behind predators. The collective stirred last, vast, cold machine intelligences who had tolerated humanity's colonies as curiosities. To them, Earth's reappearance was an anomaly, a disruption in their perfect calculations, and anomalies had to be erased. In the space of weeks, the Sol system became the eye of a storm. Dozens of alien fleets circled its outer edges, each watching the other, none daring to strike yet. The tension grew thick enough to choke. Adrian Hale watched it unfold from the Nomad's Mercy still tethered above Earth's shining surface. His crew gathered with him, their faces pale as ship after ship appeared on the sensors. "They're not here for diplomacy," Dren muttered, chewing on the edge of his mustache. His voice carried the calm of a man who had seen too many wars. "They're here to see who gets the first bite." Adrian didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the viewport where Earth's black warships hovered in perfect formation above the blue world. They did not move. They did not posture. They waited, silent and patient, like predators letting prey step into range. It made the hair on the back of his neck stand. Kylan slammed a hand against the console. "We should leave now. We don't belong in the middle of this." Adrian turned sharply, his voice cutting like a blade. "This is Earth. Where else do we belong?" Kylan fell silent, though his eyes still burned with fear. That evening, Adrian was summoned once more to the Primarch. The throne hall was darker now, lit by the pale glow of the core's conduits. The Primarch stood at the edge of a great display, watching as fleets converged on the Sol system. His cold blue eyes did not blink. "They come," he said quietly, almost with satisfaction. Adrian stopped a few paces behind him. "To conquer you or destroy you." The Primarch turned, his gaze cutting into him. "To try." There was no arrogance in his tone, no boast, just facts spoken as if he had already seen the outcome. Adrian felt his jaw tighten. "You can't fight all of them. The Dominion, the syndicates, the collectives. They outnumber you 1,000 to 1. The Primarch stepped closer, His presence was like a weight pressing against Adrian's chest. Numbers are the refuge of the weak. One blade in the right hand can end an army. Earth is that blade. Adrian's mouth went dry. He wanted to argue, wanted to cling to reason, but he remembered the beams that had torn Dominion corvettes apart like paper. He remembered the armies marching in flawless unison, the fleets forged silence above the planet. He remembered the crucible, the voice that had burned into his blood. Earth was not bluffing. The first strike came from the Dominion. Adrian was on the bridge of his ship when the alarm screamed. Dominion ships surged past the outer orbit, a wall of black and crimson hulls, bristling with weapons. Their leader broadcast across all frequencies, his insectal mandibles clacking as his voice dripped arrogance. This world is property of the Dominion. All vessels stand down. Earth will submit. Adrian's crew froze as the words echoed across the channel. Dren spat on the floor, same tune as always. Bastards think they own everything. But Earth did not answer with words. From the black fleets that hung above the planet, movement rippled. Warships surged forward, not in chaos, not in desperation, but in flawless, synchronized formation. Sleek black hulls moved like blades in the dark, their engines glowing silver. No banners, no broadcasts, no boasts, only silence. The Dominion opened fire first. Green plasma bolts filled the void, thousands of streaks ripping toward Earth ships. Adrian braced for impact, for shields to flare and shatter. Instead, the void itself seemed to bend. The beams curved, twisting away as if space itself rejected them. Not one strike found its mark. Adrian's eyes widened. That's impossible. Then Earth struck. The black warships fired not with plasma, not with missiles, but with beams of light so sharp they tore through space like knives through flesh. Dominion cruisers erupted in fire, their shields collapsing in a blink. Entire wings of fighters vanished in silence, erased before their pilots could scream. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Adrian's crew stared in stunned silence as the Dominion fleet broke apart, their arrogance dissolving into panic. Ships scattered, fleeing in all directions. Earth's fleets did not pursue. They did not need to. The message had been sent. Dren's voice was a whisper. Holy hell, they tore them apart like nothing. Adrian's chest heaved, his heart pounding. He felt awe, yes, but also fear, because there had been no hesitation, no mercy, just eradication. The syndicate struck next. They came not with warships alone, but with swarms of raiders, thousands of small, fast vessels designed to overwhelm and board. They descended like locusts, weaving between Earth's fleets, hoping to cut into the planet itself. Adrian watched from orbit as the swarm broke atmosphere. His stomach knotted. They'll hit the cities. But as the raiders screamed through the skies, the towers of Earth lit with silver light. Beams erupted from the ground, slicing through the raiders as if they were insects flying into a bonfire. Hundreds fell in seconds, burning trails across the sky, and then the sentinels came. Adrian saw them through the viewport, armored figures launching from platforms, not in ships, but on wings of light. They soared into the sky, their weapons cutting through raiders. Mid-flight, entire squadrons were torn apart by men who fought like gods, their movements too fast, too precise, guided by the core itself. On the ground, Adrian's crew stood frozen, staring through the glass as Earth soldiers tore the Syndicate apart. Kylan whispered, "They're not human." Adrian's jaw tightened. "They are, just not the kind we remember." The battle lasted less than an hour. The Syndicate swarm was broken, their survivors fleeing into the void. Earth soldiers returned in silence, their armor unmarred, their formation unbroken. It wasn't war. It was extermination. That night Adrian was summoned once more to the Primarch's hall. The ruler of Earth sat upon his black throne, his eyes burning like stars. "The galaxy tests us," he said. "They find us strong. Soon they will send more greater fleets, entire armadas, and we will break them as we broke these." Adrian stepped forward, his voice low. "Urgent. You don't have to. The scattered there are humans still chained, still serving. They'll be caught in the fire. You'll burn them too." The Primarch's gaze hardened. "Weak blood must be cut away. Only the strong endure." Adrian's fists clenched. "That's not strength, that's slaughter." For the first time, the Primarch leaned forward, his voice sharp as a blade. "You lived in chains, Adrian Hale. You crawled in the dirt of aliens. Do not lecture Earth on strength." Adrian's chest burned, his pride and fury colliding. He wanted to shout, to strike, to defy. But the Primarch's gaze pinned him like steel. "You passed the crucible," the Primarch said, "but now you face the greater trial. When the galaxy burns, will you burn with it or rise with Earth?" The words cut into Adrian's marrow. He could not answer. Not yet. From orbit, the galaxy's fleets watched in silence. The Dominion broken, the Syndicates annihilated, the collectives calculating. And deep in his heart, Adrian knew the truth. Earth's return was not salvation. It was the beginning of a war that would consume them all. The galaxy had always feared the collectives. They did not boast like the Dominion or swarm like the Syndicates. They did not speak in threats or banners. The collective spoke only actions, cold, deliberate, flawless. Machine minds spread across thousands of systems, their fleets directed with perfect synchronization, their soldiers forged of steel and circuits. Where they moved, resistance was erased. Not in fury, not in cruelty, but in absolute silence. When Earth reappeared, the collectives did not panic, they calculated. They observed the Dominion's destruction, the Syndicate's slaughter, and they adapted. And then they came. Adrian Hale was on the when the alarm screamed again. Kalen's face was pale, his eyes wide as he stared at the sensor board. "They're here," Kalen whispered. "Gods, help us. The collectives are here." Adrian leaned forward. "How many?" Kalen swallowed hard. "Too many to count. Hundreds, thousands. Every signature is perfect, no error, no drift. It's like they're one ship, not a fleet." Adrian's chest tightened. He had seen Dominion arrogance crumble. He had watched Syndicate greed die screaming. But the collectives were different. They didn't know fear. They didn't know hesitation. They would come until nothing remained. Out the viewport, the void shifted. They arrived not in waves, not in chaos, but in silence. Triangular warships of black steel emerged from slipspace in flawless symmetry, each identical, each moving as one. Their formation spread across the edge of the system like a steel curtain, cutting off every route of escape. The collectives had come not to plunder. They had come to a race. In the throne hall, Adrian stood before the Primarch once more. Real, the Sentinel commander, stood at his side, his face unreadable. The Primarch watched the holographic display of the system, his cold blue eyes fixed on the spreading machine. Fleet. They think themselves inevitable. The Primarch said softly. They think order lies in cold circuits and lifeless steel. Adrian's jaw clenched. They outnumber you 100-1. The Primarch turned, his gaze cutting into him. And yet they will fall. Adrian's fists tightened. How? You've beaten flesh and arrogance, but these are machines. They don't fear you. They don't break. The faintest smile touched the Primarch's lips. That is their flaw. They do not break. Because they do not live, they do not fear, because they do not feel. And that makes them vulnerable. Adrian frowned. To what? The Primarch stepped closer, his voice lowering like a blade sliding from its sheath. To what makes us human. He gestured, and the floor of the hall opened. A platform rose, revealing a figure bound in chains of silver light. Adrian's breath caught. It was a man or something close. His body was human, but his skin was traced with glowing veins brighter than any Sentinel Adrian had seen. His eyes burned with silver fire. His chest rose and fell with labored breath, though no chains touched his lungs. What is this? Adrian demanded. The Primarch's gaze was sharp. This is the apex. Adrian stared. The what? The culmination of 2,000 years of Earth's evolution, the Primarch said. The fusion of man and core. Mind not bound by circuits alone, nor by flesh alone, but by both. The apex can think as fast as a machine, but it feels as a man. It fears, it hates, and it commands the core itself. Adrian's stomach nodded. You made this. The Primarch's voice was cold. No, we became this. The apex raised its head, its eyes burned into Adrian's. And for a heartbeat, Adrian felt something slam into his mind, a surge of thought, of fire, of will not his own. He staggered, clutching his skull, his breath ragged. The Primarch's voice carried above him. Through the apex, Earth is not a world. It is a will. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon moves as one, not because of programming, but because of blood, because of soul. Adrian forced himself to straighten, his chest heaving. That's not unity, that's control. The Primarch's cold eyes burned brighter. Control is survival. You saw that. Scattered, hail, broken, enslaved, divided. That is what freedom gave them. Earth will not make that mistake again. Adrian's fists clenched. He wanted to shout, to strike, to deny it, but he remembered the mines, the colonies, the chains. He remembered watching his comrades bleed while their alien masters laughed, and part of him whispered that maybe the Primarch was right. Maybe freedom was just another word for weakness. The collectives moved. Their fleets surged into the system, weapons flaring with precision. Beams of energy lashed across the void, striking Earth's warships. For the first time, Adrian saw Earth's defenses strain. Shields rippled, hulls flared. One black warship erupted in silence. Torn apart, Adrian's stomach knotted. They're breaking through. But then the apex raised its head. Adrian felt it, not through the comms, not through the ship, but in his blood. A pressure slammed into his chest, a pulse that made his vision blur. The core lit with blinding silver light. veins of energy surging across the planet, through the towers, through the fleets above, and then Earth struck. The warships moved as one, no longer ships but limbs of a single body. Their weapons fired not in turns, not in patterns, but in perfect unison, like a heartbeat of destruction. Collective ships were torn apart by the dozens, their flawless symmetry shattered under something greater. Adrian staggered, clutching the console. As the apexes will poured through the void, he felt its presence pressing into every human mind in the system, binding them, commanding them. His crew gasped, hands gripping their heads, voices shaking as they felt it. Kalen screamed, "It's in my head, gods, it's in my head." Adrian's teeth clenched, his jaw aching. He could feel the apex, could feel its will, cold, burning, merciless. It whispered of unity, of strength, of conquest. It whispered that he belonged, that all belonged, that resistance was weakness. He forced himself to breathe, to anchor himself. But even as he resisted, he saw the truth. The collectives were breaking, their fleets faltered, their formations collapsing, machines that had never known fear hesitated, retreating, their logic failing against something they could not calculate, will sharpened into a weapon. The apex roared not in sound, but in thought, and the void lit with fire as the collective fleet shattered. It was over. When the silence returned, Adrian stood, trembling on his ship's bridge. His crew was shaken, pale, their eyes hollow from the touch of the apex. Drin leaned against the wall, his breath ragged. That wasn't victory. He growled. That was possession. Adrian said nothing. His chest heaved. He could still feel it. In his blood, a phantom presence. A reminder that the apex had touched him. Later in the throne hall, the Primarch stood tall before his people. "The collectives are broken," he declared. His voice echoed like thunder. "The machines thought inevitable. They are not. Earth is inevitable." The hall erupted in a roar of voices, a chorus of unity that shook the walls. Adrian stood apart, silent. He knew then what Earth had become. Not just strong, not just united. Earth had become a god forged of blood and machine, of will and core. A god that demanded not worship, but obedience. And Adrian knew, with a weight like stone in his chest, that soon he would have to choose. Would he bend to this god, or would he stand against it, even if it meant breaking against the world that had birthed him? The hall still rang with the echo of the Primarch's words. "Earth is our inevitable." Adrian stood at the edges of the throne room, his fists tight at his sides, the roar of Earth's people thundering in his ears. He had watched the collectives crumble under the apex's will. He had felt that will pressing into his own blood, choking, overwhelming, impossible to resist. He had seen the black fleets return from the slaughter untouched, disciplined, perfect. Earth had proven itself unstoppable. But to Adrian Hale, it no longer felt like victory. It felt like the tightening of a noose. Later, when the crowds had dispersed and the throne hall lay quiet, the Primarch called him forward. The ruler of Earth sat upon his stone seat, the veins of silver light beneath, his skin faintly glowing. Rael, the Sentinel commander, stood at his side. "You have seen Earth's strength," Primarch said. "You have seen our will. Now you will serve it." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Serve it how?" The Primarch rose, descending the dais with the weight of command in every step. He stopped before Adrian, his gaze sharp as steel. You are scattered born, you know that. Colonies, the mercenaries, the slaves. They will not listen to us at first. They fear what they do not understand. But they will listen to you. You will go to them, Adrian Hale. You will carry Earth's word. Adrian's stomach tightened. And if they refuse? The Primarch's voice was cold. Then they will die, but they will not die ignorant. They will know Earth gave them a choice. Adrian's fists curled. He felt the weight of the task settle on his shoulders. He was no longer just a wanderer, no longer just a man scraping by. He was Earth's voice now, its blade carried into the stars. But the blade cut both ways. The nomads' mercy departed Earth a week later, escorted by 2 of the black warships. They were not companions, they were chains. Adrian knew it. His crew knew it. Kalen's voice was sharp with fear as they drifted through slipspace. This isn't diplomacy, Captain. This is conquest. They're sending us to soften the targets before they crush them. Drin spat into a rag, his jaw tight. He's right. They'll use you as bait. Put a human face on their threat so the colonies don't piss themselves too soon, but make no mistake, those black ships behind us. They're the real message. Adrian said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on the viewport, watching the stars blur into rivers. He remembered the Primarch's words. You are either of Earth or you are not. And he still didn't know which side he stood on. Their first destination was Meridian Station, a human colony clinging to survival on the edge of Syndicate space. Adrian had been there before. Years ago. He remembered its rusted hulls, its overcrowded markets, its people bowed under debt and fear. When the nomads' mercy dropped from slipspace, the reaction was immediate. Syndicate patrol ships swarmed toward them, weapons hot. But the 2 Earth warships shifted position, black hulls gleaming like knives. The patrols froze, their comms filled with panicked chatter. Adrian broadcast before anyone could fire. This is Captain Adrian Hale of the Nomad's Mercy, he said, his voice steady. I come with a message for the people of Meridian. The syndicates hesitated. They had seen Earth's fleets tear through entire armadas. They knew better than to strike. The patrols scattered, letting Adrian's ship glide toward the station. Meridian had not changed. Its docks were rusted. Its lights flickered. Its people stared with hollow eyes. Adrian stepped onto the station with his crew, flanked by 2 sentinels who moved like shadows. The crowd parted in silence, their eyes darting from Adrian's scarred face to the towering armored figures at his back. In the governor's chamber, Adrian faced the colony's leader, a man named Radek. Thin and bitter, his clothes fine but fraying. You've brought them here, Radek spat, his eyes darting nervously to the sentinels. Gods help us, you've brought Earth to our door. Adrian's voice was calm, though his stomach churned. You should be glad. Earth offers strength, protection, freedom from syndicate chains. Radek barked a laugh. Freedom from them. He jabbed a finger towards the sentinels. Look at them, Hale. Do they look like freedom or like new masters? The words cut deep. Adrian felt them like knives. But he forced himself to speak. They're not the syndicates. They're not the Dominion. Earth is ours, it's home. Radek's eyes narrowed. And what does home demand, Hale? Adrian's throat tightened. Primarch's words echoed in his mind. Kneel or burn. He forced the truth out, heavy and bitter. Allegiance, unity, Earth doesn't ask. It commands, stand with us or be erased. The chamber went silent. Radix stared at him, his face pale. Then he slumped into his chair, his voice hollow. Gods damn you, Hale, you've become their mouthpiece. Adrian's jaw clenched. I'm giving you a choice more than the syndicates ever gave you. Radix laughed bitterly. A choice between a collar of iron and a collar of silver. The sentinels shifted behind Adrian. Their presence heavy, their weapons silent but undeniable. Adrian felt their eyes, or whatever, burned behind their helmets, pressing into him. He knew what they wanted, one wrong word and they would slaughter this chamber without hesitation. Adrian forced himself to hold Radix gaze. Choose governor. Radix's lips trembled, his shoulders sagged. Finally he whispered, Meridian will kneel. Adrian's chest ached. He nodded once, then turned away. That night, as the Nomad's mercy drifted in orbit, Adrian sat alone in his quarters. Drin entered quietly, his face grim. You did what they wanted, Drin said. Adrian didn't look up. I did what I had to. Drin snorted. You sounded just like them, cold hard. Like the Primarch himself. Adrian's fists tightened on the table. And what would you have me do? Let Meridian burn. Let those people die. Screaming while the syndicates bleed. Them dry, at least this way they live. Drin's voice was low, steady. Yeah. They live but not free. Adrian closed his eyes. He had no answer. The weeks that followed were the same, colony after colony, station after station. Adrian stood before leaders, before broken people, before men and women who had lived under alien chains for generations. He gave them the choice. Kneel to earth or burn with their masters. Most bent, some resisted. Those who resisted were not left standing long. Earth's fleet struck like lightning, erasing stations, glassing colonies, making examples. Adrian watched, his chest heavy as fire spread across the stars. The galaxy whispered his name now. Adrian Hale, the voice of Earth. To some he was a savior, bringing strength to the scattered. To others he was a traitor, a herald of tyranny. And in his own heart he didn't know which was true. On the edge of Dominion space, Adrian was summoned once more by the Primarch. The ruler of Earth appeared on the holographic display, his cold blue eyes piercing through the projection. You have done well, the Primarch said. The scattered bend, the colonies kneel. Humanity returns to Earth's hand. Adrian's voice was tight. At what cost? The Primarch tilted his head. Cost? There is no cost, there is only strength and weakness, you know this. You felt it in the crucible. Adrian's fists curled. You call it strength, but I see fear in their eyes. They kneel because they're afraid. Is that what Earth wants? Fear? The Primarch's lips curved faintly. Fear is the beginning, loyalty comes after. The galaxy must learn to kneel before it can stand beside us. Adrian's chest burned. He wanted to argue, to shout, to defy. But the memory of the apex pressed into his mind, its presence still lingering in his blood. He knew the Primarch's will was not something he could defy lightly. The Primarch's gaze hardened. Do not falter, Adrian Hale. You are Earth's blade. Do not forget which hand wields you. The projection vanished, leaving Adrian staring into silence. Later, as the Nomad's mercy drifted through the void, Adrian stood at the viewport, his reflection dark against the stars. Dren stepped beside him, his voice low. You're changing, Captain. Adrian didn't look at him. So is the galaxy. Dren's jaw tightened. But the question is, when it's done, will you be standing with Earth or against it? Adrian's chest heaved. He had no answer. But deep inside, the doubt grew. He had seen the Syndicate's greed, the Dominion's arrogance, the Collective's cold logic. They had enslaved, betrayed, broken humanity, but now watching Earth rise like a god across the stars, he wondered if salvation was any different from tyranny. And he knew the time was coming when he would have to choose. The galaxy had run out of time. The Dominion humbled, the Syndicate shattered, the Collectives broken, world after world kneeling under Earth's black fleets. The message had spread to every corner of the stars. Earth had returned, and it demanded obedience. But not all bent. Across the fractured colonies and alien empires, whispers rose. Leaders who had once despised one another spoke in secret. Old enemies became uneasy allies. They shared a single truth. If Earth was not stopped now, it would never be stopped again. The galaxy prepared for war. Adrian Hale stood at the viewport of the Nomad's mercy, his reflection staring back at him. His eyes were hard, lined with the weight of months spent carrying Earth's demands across the stars. Behind him, the hum of the ship was steady, but the silence of his crew was heavy. Dren leaned against the wall, his weathered face carved with worry. They're gathering, he muttered. Dominion remnants, Syndicate scum, even the damn machines are patching themselves back together, all of them in one place. They're desperate enough to stand together. Adrian didn't turn. His chest ached with the weight of what was coming. And Earth will meet them. Dren spat into a rag and crushed them. You've seen it, you know how this ends. Adrian's jaw tightened. He had seen it. He had seen Dominion fleets erased. Syndicate raiders swatted from the skies. Collective machines shattered under the Apex's will. He had seen Earth soldiers march in perfect unity, their eyes cold, their purpose absolute. And he had felt it too. The touch of the Apex in his blood, its will pressing against his mind, whispering that resistance was weakness. But even as the memory burned in him, another voice lingered, his grandfather's, whispering stories of Earth not as a god, not as a tyrant, but as a home. Home, not a throne, not a cage. And Adrian realized with a cold certainty that the Earth he stood beneath now was not the Earth his grandfather had spoken of. It was something else, something terrifying. The call came. The Primarch's face filled the hollow display, his cold blue eyes gleaming with calm fury. The galaxy gathers, the Primarch said. They crawl together like vermin, thinking numbers will protect them. They do not understand, they will learn. His gaze fixed on Adrian. You will lead the message, Adrian Hale. You will go before them as Earth's voice and offer them the choice, kneel or burn. Let them hear it from one of their own, so they cannot deny what comes. Adrian's chest burned. He forced his voice steady. And if I refuse? The Primarch leaned forward. His voice was low, sharp as a blade. You are of Earth, you cannot refuse. The connection cut. Adrian stood in silence, his fists trembling. Dren's voice was quiet but hard. Captain, you know what's coming. Earth doesn't want surrender, it wants domination. This is at the end. You going to stand with them or against them? Adrian turned slowly. His eyes were dark but steady. I don't know yet. But deep down he did. The fleets gathered in the dead system of Varos, a barren star choked by dust. Its planet's lifeless husks. It became the galaxy's last hope, the place where all who still dared to fight came to stand. Adrian's ship arrived at the edge of the system, flanked by Earth's black warships. Across the void he saw them. Dominion cruisers scarred but still armed, syndicate raiders cobbled together with desperation, collective machines rebuilt in jagged formation. And in the center, human colonies. Broken fleets of rusted ships, but still flying. Adrian's throat tightened. He recognized their hulls, their markings. He had fought beside some of those crews. He had bled with them, and now he was meant to stand against them. The comms lit with voices, angry, desperate, pleading. Adrian, hail, one voice snarled, a Dominion commander, mandibles clacking with fury. Traitor to your kind, you kneel to Earth and come as its leash. Another voice cut in, a woman from the colonies, her tone sharp with grief. We trusted you, hail. We thought you were one of us, and now you bring Earth's chains. Adrian's chest ached. He wanted to deny it, to explain, to scream that he had never wanted this. But the black warships behind him glared like silent executioners, and he knew the Primarch was watching. He opened the channel, his voice heavy. Earth offers you strength, stand with us, and humanity rises. Stand against us and you will be destroyed. The void went silent. Then the fleets lit their weapons, and war began. It was a storm of fire. Dominion plasma burned through the void. Syndicate missiles screaming like wolves, collective beams slicing through space. The Allied fleet surged forward, a wall of desperation crashing against Earth's silence. And Earth answered. The black warships moved as one, their beams tearing through cruisers, raiders, machines, entire wings of fighters, erased in a heartbeat. Adrian's ship shuddered as shock waves rippled across the system. But for the first time, Earth faltered. The Allies pressed harder, sacrificing themselves in waves, overwhelming with sheer numbers. Dominion cruisers rammed Earth ships, detonating in fire. Syndicate raiders swarmed like hornets, clawing at weak points. The collectives calculated every strike with brutal precision. Adrian gripped the console, his heart pounding. For the first time, he saw Earth bleed. But then the apex woke. The core's light flared across the void, veins of silver threading through the fleet. Adrian staggered as it was slammed into his skull again, pressing, commanding, demanding. Earth warships surged in unison, their movements flawless, their strikes absolute. The Allies faltered, their formations collapsing under the storm. Adrian gasped, clutching his head as the Apex's voice roared in his blood. Kneel, obey, be one. His vision blurred. His crew cried out, clutching their skulls. Kylan screamed, blood dripping from his nose. Dren fell to one knee, his face twisted with rage and pain. Adrian's chest heaved. He felt himself slipping, felt the apex's will wrapping around him, dragging him under, and in that Moment he made his choice. No, he growled through clenched teeth. The apex's presence pressed harder. Burning, suffocating. Adrian roared, his fist slamming. Against the console, I am not your slave. The pressure snapped. Adrian gasped, his vision clearing. He staggered upright, his chest heaving. He realized then that the crucible had not broken him, that the apex had touched him but had not claimed him. He was free, and he would not kneel. He spun to his crew. Drin looked up at him, his eyes wide. Blood on his lips. Adrian's voice was sharp, commanding, cut Earth's channel. Now. Kylan blinked, dazed. Captain, do it, Adrian roared. Kylan's hands flew over the console, severing the connection. The apex's presence dimmed the crushing weight, lifting from their minds. The crew gasped in relief, their eyes clearing. Adrian turned to the viewport. Earth's fleet still pressed forward, their black hulls cutting through the Allies. But the Allies still fought, desperate, refusing to break. Adrian's voice was steady, cold. Open a channel to the Allies, to all of them. Kylan hesitated, then nodded. Channel open. Adrian stood tall, his voice carrying across the void. This is Adrian Hale. I am not Earth's blade. I am not their voice. I am human, and I will not kneel to tyranny. Not alien, not Earth, not anyone. The comms erupted with shocked voices. Drin stared at him, his mouth hanging open. But Adrian's eyes burned with fire. Earth has strength, yes. But strength without mercy is nothing. But chains, they call it unity, I call it slavery, and I will not be a slave. Not again. If Earth wants obedience, it can take it from my corpse. Silence spread across the channel. Then slowly, voices rose. A Dominion commander snarling agreement. A syndicate captain laughing in defiance, a colonist crying out in hope. And the Allies surged again. Adrian turned to his crew, his voice was sharp. Set course, we're with them. Drin grinned through bloody teeth. About damn time, Captain. The Nomad's mercy roared into the fray. The battle raged for hours. Adrian fought like a man possessed, weaving his ship between allies and enemies alike. Firing with precision, striking where Earth's fleets faltered. His name carried across the comms, not as Earth's herald, but as its defector. The Allies rallied around him. But Earth did not break. The apexes will pressed into the void, its fleet still cutting down ships by the dozens. Adrian's chest ached as he watched Allies burn. He knew they could not win. Not against Earth's godlike unity. And yet, maybe victory wasn't the point, maybe. The point was to show the galaxy that Earth could be resisted, that not all would kneel. That fear was not the only answer. The battle ended in fire, neither side claimed the system. Dominion ships shattered, syndicate raiders scattered, collective machines withdrew, and Earth's fleets bloodied, but unbroken, fell back to the safety of Sol. Adrian's ship drifted among the wreckage, battered, scarred, but alive. His crew slumped in exhaustion, their faces hollow but defiant. Adrian stood at the viewport, staring into the void. His chest heaved, his body aching, but his eyes were steady. He knew the war wasn't over. Earth would come again, stronger, merciless. The galaxy would bleed, but they would fight, and as long as Adrian Hale drew breath, Earth would never command him. Epilogue, the galaxy whispered his name. Adrian Hale, not Earth's voice, not its blade, its defiance, its rebellion. the man who stood against his own homeworld and said no. And in that whisper, in that defiance, a spark was lit. The galaxy had lived in silence for 2,000 years. Now it roared.